Hello and welcome back to the Championship Crowd podcast. I'm joined as usual by Adam Harvey. How are you doing?
I'm a bit tired, to be fair, mate. Been first week back at work, so kind of acclimatizing back to sort of normality, I suppose you'd say. But obviously, first week back is after what 5 months or 6 months of that working is kind of a bit of a shock to the system, but we're good.
Yeah, nice. I'm wide awake, ready for the second leg. Recovered from the celebrations on Monday, but yeah, it's been good. Two playoff matches on Monday, and then we've got the two coming up on Saturday. I'm ecstatic about a good start for my team, Swansea. We're going to go in deeper about that game later on in the podcast, but let's start with that first game. Bournemouth winning 1-0 against Brentford. What do you think of that game, Adam?
I mean, the result is ultimately the correct one. Bournemouth were by far the better side. They dominated the game. They probably should be 2, 3, 4 ahead. In all honesty, going into that trip to Brentford there on Saturday, but obviously they've got the lead, which is the main thing. A really nice goal, actually, didn't they? Caught them on the counter. Danjuma sliding it in. I kind of marked him last podcast as the man, and I think I just knew it. He was the kind of player who, in a game like this, if you need that one goal, that bit of spark of magic, and he's the man to provide it. And there we go, 55 minutes on the clock, and he bangs it in. So yeah, good
Yeah,
finish.
yeah. Let's talk about that goal. So it was a counter attack then for Bournemouth, then through to Dan Brooks. And I was thinking, is he taking a bit too long on the ball? But very, very good from him. Quality player. Looking forward to seeing him more in the Euros. But he just slides it in, and then Dan Duma just manages to tuck it in past the keeper. But yeah, great play from David Brooks. I liked how he was moving off the ball quite a lot during the game and created other chances, and I made the third pass or a few other chances. Billing, we touched on him last week. Probably could have scored early on in the game.
Yeah, he had a good chance, did he? He's another one. I think obviously if they didn't get the win, he'd be more disappointed that he didn't bury it. But obviously they have got the lead going into that away game, which is the more important thing. But he's definitely going to have that in the back of his mind that if he gets another chance on Saturday, then he's got to bury it.
Yeah, he's got to take those chances. But I think for Bournemouth, they are going to be regretting those chances, aren't they? They could have wrapped this tie up in front of their fans, 2,000 fans there. And it would have been great to get a really positive result in front of them. 1-0 still a lot. It's always a good result going into the second leg. But you just think they had loads of chances, especially first half and early in the second half. Would they be regretting that?
I think obviously for them, it's obviously a fact that like Brentford just didn't show up at all. So they were there for the taking, and you probably could have finished the tie. In all honesty, Bournemouth could have finished the tie, in my opinion. Because I think, if you have maybe a 3-goal lead, I don't see Brentford, even at home, turning that round, especially when I don't know if it was just the pressure situation that Ivan Toney really didn't show up for this game at all. I didn't really notice him on the pitch, to be quite frank. I mean, other than, was it in Burmo had a really good chance there for Brentford, which, he'll be disappointed he didn't hit the target, because if he did, then, Brentford somehow would have scraped a draw in this game. So there's things to work on there for Brentford, but obviously from a Brentford perspective, they're still in the tie. So that's the more important thing.
Yeah, we saw Bournemouth missing all their chances, but towards the end of the game, the ball comes in, and you just think the goal's there. How does Mbemo not score it? It's beyond belief. Probably Brentford's only big chance of the game. I think other than that, they had one shot on target. Um, Obviously, his wasn't on target. That was the problem, missing the goal. What did he do? Why couldn't he score that?
I've got no idea, mate. He's got to be sliding it in. I think he's had sort of a bit of a weird season, hasn't he? Like last season, he was sort of part of that front three of Watkins, Ben Rama, and he was the other man, sort of in the BMW, I think is what they referred to it as a Brentford fans. But he's just not really showed up this season. I don't really know why. He's not. He showed flashes of like his ability, but like in a game like this, it's like you make yourself a bit of a hero, especially when you've got the Bournemouth fans all in the ground, giving you sort of, they've got the extra bit of back in there almost. You could have put the ball in the back of the net, sort of heated the game up a little bit more, and they probably would have then got another chance potentially to even somehow nick the game from Bournemouth. So he'll be a bit disappointed, but he's another player who's ultimately got the ability. So if he shows it in the second leg, then Brentford are still in it.
Yeah, he'll certainly be looking to redeem himself going into that second leg. You mentioned there the Bournemouth fans in there. 2,000 of them back into the stadium. It was great to see that for the first leg of the game. What was your thoughts on them?
A little bit mixed, to be fair. I think obviously great to see them in the stadium. All I'd say is the noise. I didn't actually notice they were there, which, I mean, I know they've only got 2,000, but Bournemouth is quite a small ground, so you think the noise would quite, would almost hold into the stadium more than, say, a really big ground where even though you have maybe a few more fans, it's, almost lost in sort of the emptiness almost. But they didn't really turn up. I saw a tweet, I think, almost about 2 minutes into the Barnsley game that someone put, I've heard more noise from Barnsley in 1 minute than I did from Bournemouth in 90, which I suppose is a little bit disappointing, but I'm not 100% sure that Bournemouth really had the most vocal support anyway, so maybe no surprises in that front.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It was great to see them in there, but it was only really when they scored their goal, and then after that they did, fair play, start singing. But leading up to their goal, they were quite bad for the first set of fans. You think all the TV cameras are on them, no fan noise, no crowd atmosphere there, just going to do solely from the fans up there. And they didn't really sing as loud as I thought they would be. Hopefully at the Liberty, we'll be showing them how it's done. But yeah, it wasn't that loud. I think Brentford fans probably going into their new stadium will be their first game at their new stadium seat with fans. So that could be interesting. Actually, they might have actually done a test event.
Yeah, they had a test event against Blackburn, I believe. It was a 2-2 draw. They had fans in.
Yeah, they did do that one test event, but it'll be like the second, first like proper one for the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see their impact in that. Do you think the Brentford fans will be able to cheer them to coming back to a massive comeback?
I do think, obviously, that's definitely going to be a factor in it. Obviously, Brentford, they obviously did win their last game there at Griffin Park last year against Swansea in the second leg. So that'll be fresh in the memory. They want another trip to Wembley to ultimately eradicate what went wrong last season against Fulham. So, that's obviously going to be a reason to try and get the win in the second leg. But obviously, is also, I think what's also a bonus is the fact that Steve Cook went off injured, didn't he, for Bournemouth, I believe, which that is, quite an experienced defender who Bournemouth have relied on for quite a few seasons. So if he's missing for the second leg, then that's also going to be an opportunity potentially for Ivan Toney, who at home, you think he's going to want to show the fans ultimately what he's been doing all season that they haven't been able to see in person.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. Ivan Toney in front of those crowd, will he be able to bag those goals? I think he's got a few assists as well this season. He has been a standout player in the Championship. And you just think, surely Brentford are going to have to turn up. You talked about that last year. We saw them losing 1-0 in their first leg away to Swansea, but then they managed to come back in their last game at Griffin Park to win that. And you just think, now maybe the first leg's out of the way. They always have this pressure in the playoffs, but they've kind of got nothing to lose now. They've got their fans going to carry them along the line. You do think we'll be seeing a different Brentford that we saw the other day, because they weren't great at all, and Bournemouth did dominate the chances. I think somehow Brentford had more shots, but then their shots on target was only one, even though they had 11 shots, and that's arguably they're just not creating those big chances. We only saw it late on in that game. So it will be interesting to see what Brentford side we see here. Do you see them turning it around?
I mean, Brentford's last defeat, like at their stadium, was on the 14th of February against Barnsley. So they've gone quite a while without a home defeat. Obviously, they have to win this game because a draw won't be enough with Bournemouth obviously already having the lead. But I do think that at home with their own fans, I do see them coming out on top, because I think obviously it's a bit of a reverse sort of in terms of Brentford were the more informed side going into this game. They had obviously got 4 straight wins, and then then if you had Bournemouth who had come off the back of 3 straight defeats, and they looked like a side who were more rested and ready for the playoff game, and they ultimately showed that. And they'll be, obviously, as we've already said, they'll be regretting the chances they missed. So I do think Brentford will win the return leg. Yeah.
You do think, because you said Brentford were going to win the first leg, didn't happen. I said Bournemouth were going to win the first leg. Happened. Was it a 3-1 though? I thought, well, Bournemouth, everyone took their chances. I think easily could have been a 3-1 there. But you just think Brentford are going to be the too strong going into the second leg?
I'll correct you. I said draw in the first leg. But yeah, I do. I just think Brentford at home, Ivan Toney against potentially a more sort of unfamiliar Bournemouth back line if Steve Cook's not in it. I do have a feeling with the fans as well, the fact that they'll want to get to Wembley to get over last year's very much disappointment. And obviously Brentford, as we all know, have got the worst playoff record in what seemingly the world. They can't seem to win in a playoff, campaign. So they'll know that they've got a chance here to get to the Premier League. And I think for someone like Ivan Toney, they need him to step up because obviously I do think he'll be offered to the Premier League next season regardless. And it'll almost be like Brentford have to go back to almost the drawing board again to find another striker replacement. So I think there's probably more pressure on them than Bournemouth. I think if Bournemouth didn't go up, they're probably less likely to lose. They might lose someone like a Dan Juma or a Billin, but I think they'll probably still try to retain a strong squad and have a decent go at it next season and potentially win the league. But yeah, I'm going for Brentford. I think Brentford will win. I'll go 2-0 Brentford. I think they'll do enough to seal it in 90 minutes.
Nice. So you think they'll go to Wembley. Interesting you say you think Bournemouth won't lose as many players. I think they may lose players, but then I think they've got enough players in there. So I think Dan Juma, David Brooks, I think a few others, we seen the exit door, but then I think they've got a lot of other players there to back up to have another strong season. But you talked about the pressure. You're saying it will work for Brentford, that they know they have to win. And even for Ivan Toney, we've seen him do it against many lower league clubs and even higher league teams this season in the Championship, scoring many goals. Ollie Watkins scored against Swansea in that second leg and probably showed that he can do it on high stage. Obviously, didn't do as well at Wembley. But do you think it's important for Ivan Toney to back up his early goals in the season and now perform to then get that Premier League move?
I think so, yeah, because obviously he has been consistent over the course of the season. He had a bit of a dry spell, didn't he? Sort of just actually almost before the playoffs, had sort of a couple of good games at the end of the season. But before that, sort of when Brentford almost had the pressure on to try and secure top two, because they were still going for automatics for quite a long time. They obviously had a bit of a drop-off, and it did seem like that drop-off coincided with Toney going somewhat out of form in comparison to what he'd been in at the start of the season. But obviously, he is the top goal scorer in the Championship for a reason. He knows where the back of the net is. So I think give him a chance. Obviously, I think if he'd have been on the end of the Mbermo chance, I think Brentford would have come into this game at 1-1. So I do think he'll get a chance. I do think he'll score. And yeah, he'll know he'll be in the Premier League next year, in my opinion, regardless whether it's Brentford go up or not.
Yes, he will do. And I think, yeah, as you say, it could have easily ended 1-1 if they took that chance, even though Bournemouth had many others before that. I don't know where to go with this one. I think it could be interesting. I think Brentford are going to come out, their fans are there. They're going to come out nothing to lose. They just have to throw everything. They know they're behind. I think Bournemouth will be interesting. We've seen them this year in terms of what they sometimes lose from like winning positions, and it could be one of those things that they may get shaky if Brentford get an early goal. It's going to be a tough one to call. I think Brentford may edge it, but then I think it may go to extra time, and it could just go either way there. Yeah, I think 2-1 Brentford on the day. I do think Bournemouth are good. And I think Bournemouth should have wrapped it up last leg. And that's why I said they were going to wrap it up last leg last time. But I think now 1-0, I think I'm going to go for Brentford over the 2 legs, just because I think we can take them in the final over Bournemouth. I prefer playing Brentford in the final. We'll go 2-1 and then Brentford nick it on penalties. Actually, Brentford will not win penalties. They'll bother that.
No, I think you've got Ivan Toney. He's the penalty specialist, so that's at least one penalty guaranteed.
There we go. We're agreeing. We think Brentford will turn it around somehow and make it to Wembley. Unfortunate for Bournemouth. I think it's just the fact that Bournemouth we saw Barnsley game earlier in the year and a few others, that they've let these big games slip when they had these comfortable wins wrapped up. They should have wrapped up last leg. They didn't. And it could come back to bite them at Brentford. So that game, 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. And the next one, 6:30. So move from 5:30, if you had that already in your diaries, to 6:30 at the Liberty Stadium. Swansea versus Barnsley. Swansea, winners of the first leg, 1-0 on JIU. Adam, what a player.
Yeah, he's a good player. It's a great finish from him. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought he was offside until I saw the replay and saw that he was somewhat level. It looked at the time from the camera angle that he was offside. So fair play. It's a great finish into the corner. I'd probably say the Barnsley defence shouldn't have allowed him so much time and room. I think they needed to squeeze him much quicker. They're a side that's usually quite high tempo and straight at you, but they seem to sort of stand off him and allow him to bend it into the corner, which is a great finish. And he's a player who is almost made for the big occasions. I think Ayew is the kind of man that you want for a game like this, almost like Dan Juma for Bournemouth. I think Ayew is the man in this fixture who I think has that little bit of spark, a little bit of magic, where you think even if it's not going for you in a game, he'll be the man you want the ball to fall to. And obviously it did fall to him and he scored. So great goal, and it gives Swansea the lead, obviously.
Yeah, what a player. I've been talking about him for a while in terms of he's going to turn up on these big games. He's turned up on this big game. What a player. He's just one of those players that he's got the talent. We know he's got the talent. He's all scored that's a 17th goal this season, so it's not like he's not been scoring loads, but it's these key moments. That is why he is so good. And that is why arguably he's as good as any championship player. I know you'll disagree in terms of Bundia, amazing player, but Ayew turns up on this big stage and he's done it again. Last year he scored the one goal. Obviously, he actually missed the penalty before that in the semi-final last year, but scored against Brentford there, scored here in the first leg. Hopefully, for my sake, he can do it this leg. Sammy, correct on her prediction, 1-0 last week. Fair play, credit where credit's due. Great prediction there. But going into the second leg, we saw Barnsley. They had quite a lot of chances in that first leg. They threw everything at Swansea. They did create a few. They gave a lot. I don't think they created many actually clear-cut chances. But will we see Barnsley come out? Do you think they've got a chance of winning it?
Yeah, 100%. I think you obviously pinpointed Ayew there, but I think you've got to pinpoint Freddie Woodman as the reason that Swansea have coming into this game ahead. Because to be honest with you, he's the only reason why Barnsley didn't score. I mean, they had a couple of really good chances. They made sort of a somewhat good stop from the first shot, but kind of palmed it into, I believe it was Callum Britton who fired it, and I don't know how he's managed to get across so quick to save that. And then there was the one where it flicked the crossbar, did it sort of not long before sort of the end of the game, where it's kind of the guy's got a flick on from the corner, and I think he got a touch on that as well, didn't he?
I don't think so on the replay. I think it just clicked the crossbar. But Freddie Woodman, I came out and said, Mark Gurhey, centre back, got the man of the match. So then you can kind of see how it goes. But I thought Freddie Woodman was arguably the best performance I've seen him play in the Swansea shirt. This year, he hasn't been as good as I thought he was in the previous year. And some Swansea fans have been giving him some stick. But what I liked about him most is we saw the Barnsley keeper. He's used to doing this sweeper keeper. He's coming out. He stops these balls. Freddie Woodman hasn't been doing that much this season. And arguably when he's come out on there, he's then kicked the ball off or gave a bad hospital pass that leads to someone else gaining the ball. On Monday, he managed to come out, do this sweeper keeper business, not only doing those great saves, but he was just everywhere and he was just unbelievable. Didn't put a foot wrong. Arguably, probably could have palmed it out a bit better with that first save. But then to make up for that, the second save, as you say, of Britain's shot, I think for him, probably should have hit it in the top corner. If you lift it up, then Freddie Woodman's not going to get there. But what a display from Woodman. And yes, I thought he was man of the match. But secondly, I do think Barnsley, they for all of their effort, for all of their energy and determination, especially that start in the second half, I think they gave everything. Their fans were behind them. They gave literally everything. But they still didn't score. And except from one or two chances, they didn't create loads of arguably big chances. I think it was a fairly close game. And it was a game that you need your top players to step up. And Andre Ayew managed to get the goal. Barnsley don't have that amazing, obviously, they've had some really good players this season, but players like Ayew to turn it around. So I just think, have Barnsley given it all and it wasn't good enough? that what can they do the second leg?
I think they've got enough in the tank. I think, especially going forward, I think that the front three dynamic of Woodrow, DK, and Freezer, I think there's what I'd say is the bench is quite strong from an attacking sense. They have Chaplin, Carlton Morris, and Adebayo all coming off the bench potentially, who are all forward players. So I think if you go into this reverse fixture and it's still, say, 0-0, obviously Swansea had the 1-0 advantage. I think, Barnsley could afford to chuck on maybe 2-3 more strikers and really go for this game. So I think in that regard, they've probably got more of a chance to score a goal in the second leg almost when they're trying to go for this game. I think Swansea, obviously, say Barnsley do grab a goal, I think you've probably got less attacking options on the bench if you need a goal. I think obviously Routledge, I believe, came on in the last game, but you don't really have like a striker option, in my opinion. If you need a goal, say in this reverse fixture, to potentially come on and score it for you, that would be my fear for Swansea.
Yeah. I think a 1-0 carrying that into the next legs is never good. We mentioned Brentford; they beat Swansea last year with that 1-0. We were on the bad end of that. So with experience losing from a 1-0 position going into the second legs, it's nowhere near wrapped up in any means. I just think with the Liberty Stadium, this time we're going for that second leg at home, and this time there's going to be fans there, and it will be an incredible atmosphere. And I just think that will hopefully tip Swansea to Wembley Stadium. But it's going to be a close. It's definitely not all over. And Steve Cooper, we've got to mention him because tactically he got it spot on. I was calling for the 5 at the back. Sammy also said for the 5 in the back. But we went for the 4 and it really worked. And Barnsley gave everything, but they just couldn't find a way past Swansea. And I just think he got it right. One player I do just think, I don't know, like Horahan, does he start the next leg? Because we were class, but Horahan, I still think he didn't have an amazing game. And he's one of those players that is probably, I'd definitely start him in the final because he can just bring some type of magic. But 1-0 up and going into the Liberty Stadium, I think probably don't really need him on the pitch. Either then we take him out, revert to the 5 at the back, but probably bring in Corey Smith instead of him.
I mean, what I'd say is Swansea just, as long as you don't concede, I mean, you've now got 4 straight clean sheets against Barnsley in the last 4 games. So that bodes quite well. If you manage to make that 5 in a row clean sheets, then obviously you've secured a place at Wembley. But obviously, as we say, a second leg is always going to be more of a feisty and intense game. I think the first leg is almost both teams were not fearful, but you're both quite reserved in the fact that, that as long as you don't get hammered or, you go into the second leg giving yourself a chance, then it leads for more of an open game where I think you'll see Barnsley come at Swansea much more. And I think Swansea will have to battle probably a lot of pressure from Barnsley because obviously Barnsley need the goal, that's going to bring a different element to the game completely. Yeah, I think it's going to be another one. I mean, I said 1-0 both fixtures, but reverse. So I said Barnsley would win the first game 1-0 and Swansea the second 1-0. And I think it might still be that, but the other way around. I do think Barnsley will win this second leg 1-0 and take it to the penalties that I said on the pod last week.
I just don't see it. I just think Barnsley, I think they just gave everything. They had their fan. They literally gave everything. And you say they're going to be more attacking, yes, but I think they really, really tried on Monday, and they just couldn't get past us. Obviously, it's going to be harder to keep that going for 180 minutes, or arguably 360 minutes in the whole season with keeping a clean sheet against them. But I just think they've given their all, and it was not good enough all through the season. I think Swansea they were their bogey team, and we heard from a lot of Barnsley fans, and just thinking Swansea, the team they don't want to play because we're defensively quite solid, third best defensive in the record. Freddie Woodman won the Golden Glove, and arguably, I think we're going to Wembley. I just don't see a way past it, and I think we're gonna catch them on the counter attack a few times. I think we saw Lowe get in. He could have had a few chances. So I think we're cruising our way there. I don't want to be too optimistic, but I'm going 2-0 Swansea, 3-0 on aggregate. The Jacks are going up.
Come on, like obviously you've got the bias there, but from a level-headed perspective, I think I'm going to be championing Barnsley on Saturday. I fancy them. I think they're the underdogs. They've had this underdog tag all season. They'll still have the underdog tag in the second leg, especially being 1-0 down, and I think they'll perform. I think Ismail will have learnt from the first leg because, again, it's probably the first experience of playoff games for him, where Swansea already had that experience from last season with Cooper. So I think he'll have learnt from the first leg, but it's all set for another intriguing game. And what I'd say is both games are so finely poised, you almost can't decide who's gonna ultimately be at Wembley still, which is quite a nice thing to sort of have going into a second leg of a playoff, because sometimes you see it where a team wins 3-4-0 in the first leg and it's like, well, that's game over for the second one, so it's almost not worth watching them. Where I think both of these are going to be really good watches on Saturday.
Yeah, the League One, I think Blackpool 3-0 up, Newport 2-0 in League Two. They're kind of done and dusted. But here in the Championship, as usual, always going down to the final games. 1-0 in both legs. You can just see a swing either way. Obviously, I'm saying Swansea are going to comfortably see home the second leg, but you just don't know. And we messed up the second leg last year. It'll be very interesting to see. But all I'm saying, Adam, is I'm very confident. But who knows? 6:30 kickoff, Swansea City at home to Barnsley, 12:30, Brentford at home to Bournemouth. It's going to be an entertaining Saturday. We can't call it. No one knows. We're disagreeing on the podcast. Well, we think Brentford will actually come back in that first leg, but I still have no idea with that. I thought Bournemouth would cruise the first one. They could have took their chances, didn't take their chances. It could come back to bite them. We're going to be reviewing that game and then looking forward to that Wembley fixture the following Saturday in our next podcast, guys. So make sure you're tuning in for that one. And if you're not following our Twitter, what are you doing? Give us the follows. But thank you again, as usual, for everyone for all your input and comments. We're loving that. Adam, any final messages?
No, just obviously counting down the days now till Saturday to see what's going to happen. It's kind of quite nice, obviously, from a neutral perspective, just watching all this sort of going on while I can, sit back with a cup of tea and just watch it and think, well, we're already in the Premier League. But yeah, it's all going to be fun and games on Saturday, and I actually can't wait. I think it's so hard to call, and that's what's ultimately so beautiful about the Championship.
It is so hard to call. I think I could be very upset on Saturday because I've gone super confident in this podcast. But hopefully I'll be coming with a smile on my face next week. But if not, I'll come on with a brave face and discuss Barnsley victory. But hopefully not. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. See you later.